Let me start the event by introducing Stefan. Stefan has been an OutSystems MVP for quite some time. He's been an AWS community builder as well, has a very strong focus on local development, and has been sharing his practical insights on his blog without systems. One, I love the domain. I think we spoke about this last time also. Without systems, I tried building, registering a similar domain without any luck. So I think you got very lucky there. But yeah, I mean, and it's a treasure trove of resources, especially the hub that we'll talk about today. But even otherwise, if you want to look at how to integrate with, Office 365, how to integrate with the Graph APIs, and many more other interesting topics are there on his blog without systems. Please do check it out. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce Stefan to the group. He's a recurring speaker on our user group now. This is the second time, and I hope there'll be many more. Stephen, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you again for the invitation to have a second round with you. It's always a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to see you, especially. Always great to talk to you. Yeah. You still have to give me the rights to share my screen, I think, because the button is still grayed out. Now I have it. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you that I have the opinion to show you what I have built after one, which I called the hub. And let me start with giving you a short introduction on why I built it. And I try to make this presentation as funny as possible for you, because it's mostly a show off what I have built for you, and I hope you like it. So let me just, because I prepared a quick presentation, and I hope you see it now. Okay. So what we are looking at is what is the hub and why I built it. So both the official announcement and both the truth why I built it. I do a short demo on what you can find on the hub and why it is useful, or maybe it is useful for you. Then an overview on how I built it. So what's the tech stack behind of the hub, and more specifically into two specific resources you will find on the hub, the vector resources and the MCP resources, and how I built it. If you have questions, simply interrupt, raise a hand or write in the chat. Since I don't see the chat now, okay, I handle it as soon as I know, or as soon as
yeah, I'll monitor it for you, Stephen.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay, let's start off. I attended the one conference, and after all that announcements, and I liked that style that Woodson was announcing new features, especially for the community. That thing where he stood on stage and said, "We are announcing Agent Workbench available now. We are announcing Personal Edition for ODC available now." I liked that style, and I got overly excited. And when I went out of the one conference, I said, "Oh, I have to build something now, not just for me, but something for the community that helps the community to learn OutSystems Developer Cloud, and of course, Agent Workbench that comes with any personal edition." So before we start, just a refresher. I think you know that all the anatomy of an AI agent. So the agent alone is not just a prompt you send off to an LLM, but it comes with additional elements. for most grounding data, so additional information that you inject typically into the system prompt from external data sources. That can be an index like Azure AI Search or Amazon Kendra, which are natively supported by the platform, but also just queries you do from a database that you inject into the system prompt. Maybe policies, additional data that the model can then refer to in order to provide better or more specific answers related to your company or to your environment for a user question or task that comes in. Guardrails, that is another element. For now, not yet covered by the platform itself, so you have to deal that on your own. These are rules and constraints that prevent data flowing into a large language model or data that returns from a large language model. The typical guardrails you would apply is preventing personal information to be injected into a large language model call or to be presented back to the user, for example. So still not yet supported by the platform, but I heard that this is coming shortly. It's getting more interesting with tools. If you already looked into Agent Workbench, you already found out that you can, when using the call agent action, attach server actions to a large language model call to maybe interact with other applications of your ODC environment or with external APIs or anything. So tools are the tools the agent can use to perform specific tasks, whether it be inside of your ODC environment or outside, meaning leveraging cloud services or anything else. Memory, that is also covered by Agent Workbench by providing a new entity, which is called memory, that stores the conversation flow for a given session and a given user interaction. So it merely just stores any input message and output message when interacting with a large language model. And this is necessary because you already know that models itself do not store anything throughout the conversation. They are stateless in that sense. So you need to manage the memory, the interaction with a large language model on your own. And last but not least, the model itself. As I always say, model matters. And we heard that before, that there is a vast selection of individual foundational large language model or general purpose models, but also very purpose-built models that are very good at performing a specific task. So the model you use for an agent always matters. And if you switch from one model to another, or even upgrading a version from a model, an agent may behave differently than before. So this is just a refresher. I guess we heard that a lot through over the last years. But this anatomy was all about building the hub, or that was the general idea to building the hub. And I built it mostly, and this is the official statement now, I built it to provide you with a set of resources you can attach to Data Fabric. Data Fabric is the data virtualization layer of OutSystems Developer Cloud to give you basically a head start by giving you predefined set of resources like datasets, for example, the Northwind database you can attach to your environment to try out querying data, injecting data into large language model calls, interacting with that database to handle orders, for example, or proposals you want to generate, and a few others. Then custom AI search resources I call it vector resources. So these are text indices that are stored or that allow you to semantically search for information. So that is what is provided by the hub. Some MCP servers that provides you tools. Some tools you can use during large language model calls. And this is a little bit weird, tools directly in the hub. And I show you, there is only one for the moment. And I show you what I've built for you to make your life building or trying out agents in OutSystems Agent Workbench a little bit easier, or just give you a head start. So the left one, that is the official thing, but in the end, and that is the truth, I did it for the technical challenge, and I learned so much throughout that journey, and I hope I can transport some of my learnings to you during this session and afterwards, as we see. Okay, so let me give you a short demo of the hub. So the hub is available since you know that it is running on my personal edition, and so it's quite hard to remember the name here. So I built a small landing page, which is if you access without systems, you can go to the hub. And here you find the link to the application along with some videos. Okay. And once you're inside the hub, the first thing you want to do is to log on with your OutSystems community credentials. So I'm already logged in here, but you will see the login button. So you click here, sign in with your OutSystems community account, and then you get access to all the resources that are provided. For now, it's just 8 resources you can use. I'm going to extend that over the next couple of weeks and months.
Stephen, yep. I don't know if it's only me, but I think I can't hear your audio. Maybe it's only at my end. Can anyone else hear him?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, then it's only on your side, huh? Okay. Should I continue? I guess I can continue, right? So if it's only on your side.
Yeah, I can hear you too. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So what you see here are the individual resources. So we have datasets, we have vector, and we have MCP. So these are the 3 resources that are for now provided via the hub. Datasets are PostgreSQL databases. Vector are custom AI search providers, and MCP are MCP servers. And we walk through it and how we can attach it to our environment. So you go here, you select one of the resources you want to attach to your own ODC environment. For example, the Lego dataset. In my youth, Lego was a big deal. So Lego was basically everything. And what you see here is on the left side, you see the configuration you have to take in ODC portal to attach the data source. And on the right side, you can create your own credentials for accessing it. Let's walk through that. Let me just put
Stephen, could you
here.
zoom
Yep.
into the, yeah.
Let me just make that a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
Now it should be better, right?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So that is the configuration you need. And let's hop over to ODC portal. Let me just move that a little bit bigger. So what you do on the left side, you go to the integrate connections area, click on create a connection, then select the PostgreSQL provider. Give it a name. So in my case, it's Lego. You can provide a description, take the username you get here from the create credentials button. and the password. Then enter the host, which is, or you can copy it also from the hub. So it's datasets without .systems. It's this port. The database is Lego. And setting SSL mode to disable. And what you then do is you need to test the connection, which takes a little bit. And it's not working. That's the, I guess that always happens when you present something, that something
That's
is not
the
working.
curse of live demos.
Okay, let me show you the same with the board games. So, so once you imported it here, the next thing you need to do is that you need to import the tables that are inside of that data set. So the board games contains one table which is called game that has the following attributes. And sometimes it's necessary here to modify the type of the individual attributes. So you click here. It always tells you what is the original data type in the database, because sometimes I haven't found out when this happens and for what data types this happens, but sometimes OutSystems mixes up the interpretation of the data type. So in some cases, an integer may become a text attribute here. And in that case, you need to review it and change it according to what you really need. Okay. So when you're satisfied.
That is interesting, Stephen, because I would assume that when you are importing from a database, it would also take the data type information from the database and not infer it.
In most of the time it does, but
Okay.
sometimes it just doesn't. And I haven't found out when this happens. I was always assuming that, or at first I was assuming that these special PostgreSQL data types like short, for example, that they are not interpreted by OutSystems correctly. But after doing some tests, it's completely volatile. So I can't tell when this happens and when. So my suggestion is to always review the type.
Review, yeah.
And then click the import button. And then you can use this one. I have it imported here. You can import, let me just remove it. And in your applications, you can then click the connection button, the public elements button, look up the source, which is in my case, the board game source, select the entity, edit, publish the application, which takes a while.
Stephen, while that's compiling, I had a few questions, if it's okay. I found it interesting in many of your hub resources, you have the credential management setup, including that for your, which is coming down the line, your advisor on when to build agents and how to build agents. Will you be able to, I don't know if we will have time, maybe dive into how you build the credential management, especially for the Postgres. I think that'll be interesting for us to understand also.
We will come to that point out. So that is part of the tech stack I'm presenting, how this is actually done, this credential management for the various resources. Okay, so just give me 5 more minutes, then we're there.
Sure.
Okay, so after importing, we can immediately view that data. in ODC Studio. So this is what that data resource provides. And remember that all the resources are read-only for you. So even if you have that create game and action here, it will not work. So the credentials are read-only for the dataset. Now, this one, just like we imported a dataset, the same applies to importing MCP servers. It's basically the same. You enter the credentials and then you click the import button. Instead of entities, you now see the tools that are provided by an MCP server, along with the input and output parameters you can use. And the same applies to custom AI search. So MCP servers is this one, and custom AI search is this one. And custom AI search, here you can't select any entities or something. It's just a search provider where you give in a query, and then the query returns one or more of resulting text elements for you to inject into a system prompt. And this is how you connect basically the resources from the hub to your own ODC environment. Now, the front end here, as we saw, is running in my personal environment or in my personal edition. Everything else, so the resources are not. And let's look on where they are running. So the front end, which is called the hub, is a single application that has some entities that provide you with the UI and where you can select the front end. And the front end itself, or what you can use, are basically three elements. Or I built three applications that are part of the hub. So the hub itself, that is what we just saw. Memory is an application I use to scrape websites and index them into a Quadrant vector database collection. So this basically powers the custom AI search resources under the hood. And Agent Planner is a tool that I show later that is available via the hub that can help you to plan your next agent or agentic application environment. Okay, so the resources itself are running on a Kubernetes cluster or an Ubuntu micro Kubernetes cluster, to be more specific. And that cluster runs a PostgreSQL instance and a Quadrant. Quadrant is a vector database instance as well, along, and this is where we get to the point, along with an instance of HashiCorp Vault. And HashiCorp Vault is a secrets management system that has a plethora of plugins for interacting with other systems to provide so-called dynamic credentials. So what we saw on the front end, where I click on create credentials, is actually a call to HashiCorp Vault that is connected to the PostgreSQL instance. And HashiCorp Vault then creates a dynamic credential, username and password, for a specific database. So that's the resource you select up front, and returns it to the front end, and then basically to you. And these are all time bombed. So currently I limit a single credential to a maximum of 30 days. So every time you click the create credential button, that credentials are limited to 30 days of usage until they time out. And this timeout and management of resources are handled by HashiCorp Vault. So it's not me creating a user directly in PostgreSQL or something. That is handled by HashiCorp Vault, and HashiCorp Vault creates the dynamic credentials for PostgreSQL, along with basically for all the resources, HashiCorp Vault creates that credentials for using the resources. Besides that, this Kubernetes cluster uses or hosts an Nginx instance that is only used for reverse proxying to more instances or more containers that run the MCP servers. The MCP servers are created with FastMCP 2.0, a Python framework for creating MCP servers. And Nginx is just proxying through that. And here again, the credentials that are created for that fast MCP or connecting to the fast MCP server, they are also created via HashiCorp Vault to access it. Okay. Did that answer your question you had before?
Yes, yes, Stephen, that definitely does answer my question. I do have another question. Do you have a home lab setup where the Kubernetes clusters is hosted, or is this hosted on the cloud?
This is hosted in, the provider is called Hetzner. Hetzner
Okay.
is quite a popular hosting provider here in Germany and in Finland. And I rented a metal server there.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
So not directly at home at me. Yeah. So because my internet connection is sometimes not really stable. Okay, so besides that, which technologies are used? I'm using mostly Mistral for generating or for embedding information from that scraped websites into a Quadrant collection. The agent planner itself is using Amazon Nova Pro via Bedrock. We will see later how that works. I created several connectors for HashiCorp Vault, of course, to connect here. For Quadrant, of course, to maintain or to manage the index in the vector database. And for website scraping, I'm using Firecrawl. Firecrawl is a service, a cloud service that is able to scrape websites and return the content as markdown. Yeah, and that's basically the tech stack of the hub. So, and as you see, I might have fully over-engineered it, yeah? But I liked it. I did it for the technical challenge.
No, it is extremely interesting. And so Quadrant is it a vector database or is it just a
Yep.
index? It's a vector database.
It's a vector database. Huh?
And it's open source?
It is, yeah, it's, how's it called? Fair source, I think is the new term for it. So you can use it basically free.
Okay.
For non-commercial projects of all kinds. But if you use it commercially, you have to buy a license then.
So it's a freemium product.
Yeah, I think the new term for this type of license is now free source or fair source license or something.
Okay, fair source license. Understood.
Because
free for learning, but and it makes sense. I mean, that's how you can probably monetize it as well. You build enough community expertise on it by making it available for free, and then obviously monetize it. That's not good. That's not bad. Yeah.
I like that. I like that Quadrant vector database a lot. It's extremely powerful, and it's easy to use, opposed to some others you find, and they have really excellent documentation. In the end, when dealing with a vector database, documentation is really everything.
Absolutely, yes, yes.
Okay, so how are that vector resources built? As I said, I scrape websites with Firecrawl, and Firecrawl, it basically gives you the whole website, including all the navigation and everything. But I don't need that. Typically, I only need the main content of the page, the article that is on that page, or the when you look at the OutSystems documentation, only the right part of the screen without the navigational links. So I have a step in between where I clean that markdown using a Mistral call. So I send in the whole markdown with lots of instructions on cleaning up the markdown I receive, which gives me a clean markdown. Then I split it into individual chunks by a sentence splitter. And then I apply, and that is very interesting, Anthropic's contextualized chunk pattern. So what is that? So if you think of, you have a huge text and you split that text into 5 sentences chunks, for example. And contextualizing means that you take now one chunk and basically tell a large language model, take this chunk and add a context for this chunk based on the following full text. So you always inject the full text plus an individual chunk and tell the LLM, please refer to the full text and create a context for this individual chunk. And this is extremely this is actually a pretty powerful technique to ensure that when you search in your vector database, so it's a similarity search, so you search for, you search basically for a number representation in the vector store based on what you entered in the front end, for example. And giving the chunk more context allows you to find the, let's say, the right chunks in a Quadrant collection with a higher scoring than you normally would. Because sometimes you lose, due to the chunking, a lot of context is lost, and that contextualizing adds the necessary context to an individual chunk to better retrieve afterwards.
So, if I understand correctly, Stephen, you're not only storing the chunk that has been separated out, but you're also, in addition to the chunk, you're storing the context as well.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Sometimes that is so. For example, if you ever have read a larger contract, so a contract typically starts with this contract is between ABC Limited and XYZ Limited. And in brackets, typically it says this contract is between ABC Limited, brackets, the buyer, and XYZ, the seller.
Correct.
Afterwards, in that whole contract, you never read ABC anymore. You never read XYZ anymore. So that context is basically lost when you split by sentences. So some chunks, so most of the chunks, they will read like the buyer agrees to, but who was the buyer? No one knows.
Correct.
And contextualizing means that the LLM injects that the buyer is still ABC and the seller is still XYZ. So this is just a simple example on how this contextualization works.
And the splitting of the sentences. So if you already split your entire data into individual sentences, when we talk about applying the contextualized chunking pattern, it is identifying groups of data that should be stored together. Is that what it does? So you have 5 sentences. Let's say you have 100 sentences. Does this process identify in which sentences need to be grouped together and stored together as a chunk?
No, that is a different pattern. That is semantic chunking. What you're referring to, where similar sentences are basically grouped together, which is so semantic chunking is typically when you use the similarity search only for finding a point within the vector, but then always inject the full document. Then it's great. Then it's really great. This one here, so this pattern here is when you inject the individual contextualized chunks into the large language model. So basically, splitting by sentence means just like they flow throughout the document. So it takes the first 10, the next 10, the next 10, the next 10. It's always with an overlap, but something like that. That is dealing with building up such a vector store that can be a huge project. You have to know every document type. You need to identify the best chunking strategy for each individual document type. Sometimes you have to build up multiple LLM calls to get to a chunk. And to its corresponding metadata, which is on top of it. So it's that can be really a huge project.
I think I have the next topic after the series that I want to discuss with you.
Oh yeah, that is the last index project I did. It was 4 weeks where we just wrote on paper. We haven't built anything. We just what we created. So not really paper, but the only thing what we did is we created a huge document type land, a map, like a map. And for each document type, we identified the metadata. We looked into how are they structured, how are individual parts of a document related to others. Do we have side references from one document to another document, and how can they be looked up, and so forth and so forth. It was a very interesting project, but it took us 4 weeks to plan everything, and we built it then in 3 days or something.
Yeah, I think now that we've got all of this AI-assisted coding and low-code tools, I think that's one thing that people misunderstand. The fact that you have these tools to accelerate development does not necessarily mean that you cut corners in the planning phase as well. I think that's where most projects go wrong. So now that you have that, you save that additional time, invest that in putting in more thought behind what you want to build to get a better output. I think that is key.
Especially when it comes to that areas that the user doesn't see.
Correct.
So I mean, if a user sees something, so that is often pretty obvious. They say, I need to scan a QR code, and when I scanned it, I want to see X and Y and Z. So that is something everyone knows. But so I want to search for KX25 defect, and then it should show me all user manuals related to that. That is a little bit tougher.
Correct. True.
Okay.
No, very interesting, and it's great that we have a tool available to explore that. And I hope all our attendees are paying attention. Do ask questions. Let's have it more interactive, and I mean, it's a great resource. I definitely will be exploring this. Stefan, thank you so much. Let's continue.
Okay, so the final thing, so how did I develop that MCP server? So I created my own, although for some of the MCP tools I publish, there have been pre-built MCP servers available. But since I'm using my own type of authorization to it, I built it on my own. And what I did is, so I'm using Kiro. Kiro is an Agentic IDE from Amazon, actually, that you can use for wipe coding and spec-driven development. So that is pretty cool, that spec-driven development feature of Kiro. I attached an MCP server to that environment, Context 7, and that is something, if you still love to code like me, look into Context 7. It's free to use. It hosts thousands of scraped documentations of all kinds, and they keep it up to date. And what you can do is basically in your steering documents that I created for building an MCP server, you can reference to the individual libraries that are hosted by Context 7, and that gives you up-to-date documentation. It injects it into your LLM calls, and this allowed me, I guess, for the market down MCP server I'm hosting, it took me less than 5 minutes to not only develop it, build it, but also deploy it to the Kubernetes cluster, make the health check, and keeping it running in less than 5 minutes. So that is a pretty cool thing. So if you still love to code, try out Context 7. Not necessarily Kiro, because MCP server you can attach to any other wipe coding toolkit available, but Context 7 is a great free service to have up-to-date sorry, to have up-to-date documentation in your LLM calls. Okay, and finally, I want to show you the last or the only tool feature that is available on the hub, and that is the Agent Workbench Planner. And note that experimental here, it is experimental. You go to the tool, and you can describe here what you want to build. And I say, I want to build an agent that helps me to plan user groups. Okay. And then it runs. Now that system prompt took me really a long time. Okay, we see what it will come up with. So basically what it does, that even if you just provide a minimal instruction, it always comes up with a suggestion on what type of agent you could build with Agent Workbench. So I basically told the LLM that even if a user does not provide sufficient information, interpret as much as you can, never ask back to the user, always come up with a proposal. So what it does, that it creates an agent pipeline. An agent pipeline can be a single agent environment, can be a multi-agent environment. It creates for you individual agent descriptions, suggests which grounding data that you should think of in attaching to your agent. It creates a system prompt, or that can be good or bad. It suggests you which tools you should create inside OutSystems. This one, for example, to collect user data from various sources with a tool input structure and an output structure, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. So, and that basically does it for all the agent it discovers throughout its pipeline. It's just a suggestion for you that should help you in okay, how could I structure my agentic pipeline? Or even if you need basically a second opinion, should I build one agent or should I build a multi-agent environment? This tool can help you to get a second opinion of that. And it also gives you additional information on what assumptions it made. So the less information you provide here, the more assumptions you will find here. Then some information regarding how the agent flow is and why this tool came up to this concrete suggestion. I mean, I like it. Okay, so but carefully review what is suggested here. It is experimental. It still needs some tuning, tweaking, and so forth. But I think it can give you a good head start in developing your own agentic pipeline. And that's basically it from my side. And we can open up the Q&A.
So, Stephen, I have a question for the agentic, your agentic workbench advisor. Is there a reason why you opted to give an instruction to not ask for more information?
The first reason is that I said, okay, if someone starts with agents, typically, and everything I provide is for the starter, right? So
Correct.
potentially you would not need it, right?
Correct.
So so it's for the starter who does not know anything. So I wanted something, even if they provide just a single sentence, it should come up with something. So that is what I wanted. And the second reason is that having a conversation would produce a lot of token consumption.
Right.
So, and that is basically my personal money constraint, where I said, whoa, can I really afford multiple
True.
people running through thousands of conversations? I cannot do that. I cannot pay for that. So, and that is what you see also on the hub. It's limited to 20,000 tokens per month. And which should allow you to create 5 to 6 suggestions a month.
Okay.
I mean, everything is getting cheaper now, so potentially I will raise that over the next coming months, this limit. But for now, it's just like that, because I'm a little bit afraid that I cannot bring food to the table anymore.
No, so I have a follow-up question then. Of course, I'll let others ask as well. I don't want to hog your entire time. But I do have another follow-up question is, do you think that you might at some point expose an MCP server having a collection of these prompts which you can access and use? So that way they are not using your tokens, they're not using your AI tokens, but they can use their own AI subscriptions or their own connections to get the same output.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. Actually, now that you say it, it's actually a pretty good idea. So thank you very much. We definitely should have another talk.
Absolutely.
But yes, now that you say it, yes.
All right. The floor is open to other questions. Let's keep this interactive. Hopefully, all of you guys learned a lot in this session, and you obviously have a lot of curiosity. There's a lot of questions I have, but I'll let the floor ask a few more questions. Any questions? Yes, Navneet, go ahead.
Hi, Stephen. Good to
Hey,
see you again.
likewise. It's been a
So,
while.
I have question related to the agentic workflow. So, what I did that I use OpenAI as a vector or the RAG system where we fetch some JSON and put into the grounding data. So, when I use the testing tool of the agent to check my system prompt and the user prompt, it give me a proper answer. But when the same system prompt I execute with the test app, it gave me a very different answer. So what might be the cause for that? If you can, uh, uh, put your thought that what can be the wrong in this process.
I mean, Paul, that's a tough question. Huh? I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, the challenge with so just without knowing now your system prompt. So the challenge is every time, let's say you ask an LLM 5 times the same question, there is a chance that you get 5 different outputs, right?
Okay.
And the only thing you can to make it more deterministic is to write additional instructions on how it should behave, right?
I
So-
want to add one thing in that. We already did that, and when we test it, it always return a single answer, which is correct. But again, when we run it through the UI or the test app, it returns a single answer, but in the different context. This is only the problem. Our system prompt is very, in detail. We put all the instruction that it could not hallucinate the data or the chunks, but somehow it is doing that.
I mean, okay. I mean,
Navneet,
one
sorry,
reason
Stefan, go ahead.
one reason could be when you use the test agent tab, the memory is not respected, right? So,
Okay.
but when you use the app, basically the app that is generated out of the agent, this respects the memory. So maybe you have something in the memory that leads to another. So the easiest way would be just to to disable the memory step to prevent
Okay.
injecting memory into the model call.
Understood. Understood. Thank you.
And
And
Navneet, I'll give you a mistake I made today morning and spent 2 hours trying to figure out what was a very similar problem.
uh-huh.
I put the system prompt in the test agent utility, and I got the answer again and again, and I got it right. I fine tuned everything, and I'm running my app, and I'm not getting the right answer.
Uh-huh.
And then I realized I had not updated the site property. Maybe you're not as dumb as I, but that is a good place to check as well.
So I already checked that. I debug it, and the system prompt is similar, but
Okay.
maybe the Stefan has said that we need to disable the memory part and have
One
to
other
check.
thing that can help you getting more consistent data. So if you look at the call agent properties, you will see almost for all, including for custom connectors, a property known as temperature. If you want consistent replies, as consistent as possible, there will always be some variation. You can set the temperature to 0. That will ensure that the variation is limited to the minimum. So that variable from 0 to 1 will give you more creative responses, and 0 will give you more accurate or more repetitive responses.
Accurate.
So you might want to look at that as well.
Okay, I'll do that. One more question. In agentic flow, I put some log messages server action to do the log the responses or the system prompts in the monitor section, but somehow it is not getting captured. So any idea that why we are not logging those messages into the portal ODC portal log monitor system?
So you created the log messages or what?
Yes, the log message server action provided in the ODC system. So I put that in my agent flow call, and when I try to look into the log section, it is not available in that section. Even the app is not available. The agentic app was not available in the drop down as well.
I have no clue. So for logging of large language, since mostly I use Amazon Bedrock, and I use
Okay.
CloudWatch for logging
Okay.
LLM calls, which gives you basically everything, including the guardrails and what I'm using. So I cannot tell. In the end, regarding the log message server action,
Mhm.
I have absolutely no clue. So because I think I haven't used that action in any
Okay.
ODC
Okay.
project so far.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you very much.
Navneet, for the log message, depending on how large the context is, I might want to look up the documentation also. I think there's a limit on how much you can pass in a log message. So if your context is very large,
Mhm.
then there's a possibility it might be
Okay.
erroring out and not logging it.
Okay. So I'll check it with my lesser content and
Right.
try it. Okay. Thank you very much.
Just a side note regarding JSON. So injecting JSON into the system prompt, what I do is that in addition to a JSON, I always inject a JSON schema as well. So the JSON schema to describe what is the JSON and then the actual JSON.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah. Understood. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions? Okay. Stephen, I have
Everyone else is in the Saturday mode,
everyone is either
Just
they are all in the
listening.
Saturday mode or they are way ahead of where we are in their agentic
Could
journey.
be,
So
could be.
that's very much
Hopefully it is
possible.
hopefully
I
it
hope
is
so.
like that.
I hope so. All right. So I did have, and maybe this is something that might require a completely separate, longer conversation. But when we do talk about agentic AI, or rather AI search or vector search, you've given us the resource for us to be able to use Quadrant in the way that you implemented. Does that mean that when we do that, will we be able to in the hub? Will we be able to push data in, or is it just searching for data that's already in your vector database right now?
So the resources I provide are only for the one, so you cannot inject anything on your own.
Okay.
That is actually on my long list
Okay.
to give everyone basically a single collection where they can
Right.
scrape things on their own, but I still have to calculate that through how much that costs me, So
Yeah.
because scraping costs money, injecting costs, embedding costs money, so but I still have to calculate that through. But that is on my long list. If you want to build your own injection pipeline, I have written an article on that. Unfortunately, it's for O11. And it's
Okay.
still on my Medium blog, so I haven't moved that over to OutSystems. But on my Medium blog, there is it's actually two tutorials on how
Okay.
to build a Quadrant collection.
I think, Stephen, that'll be great. So we can connect later. If you can send me those Medium article links, or you can put them in the chat, I will have them sent out as a part of the event closeout discussion, because I think that's something that'll be really useful for those who want to set up their own Quadrant setup as well. And I think you mentioned that is a much larger discussion, but in terms of these vector databases, what would be good target use cases for them, and what are strict no-nos? So, for example, let's say we are building an LOS engine, and you have a large volume of customer demographic data, and you've got them across. So you anonymize it, remove all the PII data. Can you convert that into sort of JSON structures and use that to create vector embedding so that you can search and pull out information? Is that a good application for it, or is the primary application more for documents and more non-structured data?
Yeah, so vector database, I would say the primary use case is, of course, text, unstructured data, but
Okay.
also image, audio, so media in general,
Okay.
because you can also embed, for example, images. and store it. And for example, for product recommendation, what Amazon is basically doing, that you can take a picture and then it shows you these are potential products that match with your picture. That is something you can build with
something
Quadrant
like
as well.
Google's circle to search.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's a vector database, so it's nothing more, nothing less. It stores vectors and it's able to retrieve vectors quite fast. So it's
interesting. All right.
Because everything else, so how you create the vectors, that is handled by a model. And there are models for embedding text, there are models for embedding audio, and everything else also.
And so based on how OutSystems currently has the grounding data set up, where, for example, if you wanted to pass documents to the model, you can fetch the binary and pass it. Would you recommend doing that approach, or actually having the document passed into a vector database and do the typical RAG pipeline where you extract only the text that's required or that's relevant to the prompt?
I mean, if the grounding data is static, so if you know it's static, I mean,
correct,
you can either statically type it into the system prompt or
correct,
just read it from an entity or something. So then you don't need anything. So where you need a custom AI search is if the context should switch dynamically based on
right,
what the user just entered to the system or to the agentic pipeline. So then you basically, so the last message was, please summarize XYZ. Then this message is picked up. You perform a similarity search against the custom AI search provider. You get a bunch of text chunks. You inject it into the system prompt for this call, and throughout the conversation, it dynamically changes the system prompt context all the time. Yeah?
Right. So something where you have, let's say, multiple policy documents for different types of customers per se, or different classes of customers. So you can put those in your vector database, and depending on what customer profile you're querying regarding, it dynamically picks up that particular policy information.
I'm
trying to think of a good use
I would say depends. So if you already know the customer, so because he signed in and everything, I mean, you could just look up the document and statically inject it into the system prompt. There is no need for similarity search. But let's say you have embedded 1,000 podcasts.
Okay.
And you want now, you want now to know in which podcasts someone mentioned, I don't know.
Okay.
Indian food. Huh?
Okay. Yeah.
And then it returns you, I found it in podcast 1 to 2035 and something. Huh? So it's more for similarity search, that where you do not know upfront, basically. So the user can ask anything. So the next time he asks, and in which podcasts is mentioned OutSystems Agent Workbench, for example.
Right. So, I mean, similar, based on your example, one thing that I can think of is a knowledge management system. Right. So you've got a whole bunch of wiki articles internally on best practices, let's say for OutSystems coding. And then you want to search, I want to do a hierarchical representation. What are the best practices? It will go and search through all the different wiki articles and pick out the ones that are relevant. Makes sense.
Yep.
All right.
That's neat. You still have your hand risen, or is that from before?
No, I raised it again. Just want to ask you that remember our previous conversation about the load testing of the ODC. So if you can take a session about it, that what we can do, ODC load testing or not, it will be great for us.
Oh, load test. Oh yeah. Hey. Oh, whoa, that's another point for my long list. You know,
Yeah,
it's getting even worse. You know, and my long list is really long.
yes,
I put it somewhere in Navneet, so I put it somewhere in the long list.
yeah. Our
I
testing guys or friends are very keen about that how we can do the load testing in the ODC, because it is very painful experience with the ODC application right now, right? So
yeah.
if you can help us that what can we do or what cannot be achievable at the moment, then it will be helpful for us.
The pain is that OutSystems, they really did a great job, you know, in configuring their load balancers and web application firewalls. So load testing from the outside is actually really challenging because they did such a good job. I mean,
Yes, but
unfortunately, so this is now challenging.
yeah. So either they can provide some sort of a way to provide a summary that it what are happening behind the scenes. So it will easy to provide a customer a picture that your system is good, and do not worry about the, because customer always ask that what about load testing, and what if we put lots of load on the system, what
Mm.
will gonna
So,
happen?
Navneet, while it's a great question, and I've noted it down, we'll try and schedule a session on this separately.
Sure,
I
sure.
think we'll keep the questions limited to the session for today.
Sure. No problem.
Yeah, but it is an
Thank you very much.
interesting question. We will answer that. We'll try and get a session planned on that. I think
Thank you.
Stephen already has a couple of ideas from today that we think we'll collaborate on in the future. So, yeah, we'll definitely look into that. All right. Any other questions that we have? Okay. All right then. So thank you again, Stephen, for sharing your hub and the resources. I'm sure it has been quite challenging, quite satisfying also, I believe, for you
Oh
to be
yeah.
able to build these resources. I think if we just talk about each of the resources that you developed in the hub, that would be a completely separate masterclass series on its own, and we'll probably get to it at some point. But thank you again. There's a lot of great takeaways, a lot of new learnings for me, especially, and I am sure for the group also, it's been extremely useful and interesting. Feel free to reach out with all of your queries, not just now. If you have any queries, you can put in the chat. Else, you can also send your queries to me or to Stephen. You can find him on LinkedIn. He's fairly active there, and I'm sure he's there on the OutSystem forums as well. Thank you again, Stephen, for your time and effort, and thank you all for attending.
No, thank you all. Always a pleasure. Okay.
Thank you.
And have a great Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, have a great weekend. Yeah. Bye-bye. Bye, guys.
See ya. Bye bye.